Hey, what's up guys? It's TechZoomer talking to you here. And in today's video, I want to talk about what are the best lenses for the Sony A6700. Specifically, two lenses that I've bought and I've been enjoying very much. So, in today's video, I will be talking about more of my new camera because I like it and I want to do it. So, if you like these types of contents, don't forget to drop a comment below, subscribe to my channel, and of course, roll the intro. So, the two lenses that I'll be talking about today are very simple lenses. It's a prime lens and a zoom lens. But I think you won't be surprised for which lenses I will choose. These are two G lenses from the G lineup, the APS-C lineup. I did not choose any full frame lens to adapt to the APS-C lineup, although you can do it. You can adapt a full frame lens to this camera, no deal. The only issue is that when you are going to buy a full frame lens, you have to notice that, for example, a 24mm lens or a 24-70 zoom lens won't be what it's advertised because the APS-C lineup crops in 1.5 times. So if you are buying a 35mm lens, for example, a prime lens, then expect that that would be a 50mm equivalent on the APS-C lineup. And if you are buying a 55 or a 50mm prime lens for your nifty 50, then expect that to be equivalent of a 70mm, so a portrait or a mini telephoto on the APS-C lineup. So when buying full frame lenses, be very careful because you have to apply that 1.5 crop to the focal range and of course the aperture. So do not forget that when buying a full frame lens. But in today's video, you don't have to worry about any of that because the lenses that I'm recommending you guys to buy are two APS-C lineup lenses. One that is really recent, like came out last year, and another that is really good, came out in the last 3 years, but I think it's a really good deal because it covers every focal length that you need, and I think it's really good. In terms of optical quality, has optical stabilization, has every single feature for the newer Sony lenses, and it costs less than $400. So, the first lens that I want to talk about today is the Sony 15mm G F1.4. This is the lens that I'm recording this video right now, and you have seen in my channel for the last 5 videos. This was my first lens that I bought with my Sony A6700. It's a really good lens. This lens is made of very premium materials, the same materials made from the Sony A6700. So they feel pretty much like home on the Sony. Again, this lens is really well built, and it feels that the heft that when a premium material gives you, it feels premium. It kind of makes this noise when you move it up too close to the camera. It's really weird, I don't know how to explain it, but you can hear it, and it's a prime lens, so you cannot zoom in or zoom out. This is a prime 15mm lens, equivalent to a 21-22mm lens on the full frame. So again, this is the image that it can produce. As you can see, it's really good. The aperture is f1.4, so it's really wide, so you can catch tons and tons of light. Because of this aperture, this lens creates a very nice bokeh on every photo you take, on every video you make. So again, this lens is one of those that you need to have on your back because it's extremely useful. You can make amazing talking head shots like this. You can create vlogs, which is another fun thing with this lens. You can do so much things with this lens. I think this is one of those that you need to have just for do everything because you can take amazing landscape photos, amazing like apartment photos, housing photos, everything that has to do with real estate. You can take really good shots of people if you get close to them. It's a different aspect ratio. It's not as good as, for example, a portrait or a telephoto. But again, that's not the purpose of this lens. This lens is a 15mm, so equivalent to 21mm lens on the full frame because it's a prime lens. The objective is to have as much quality as possible on a very small form factor that is also not that much expensive. So I think they did it. This lens cost me around $600, but for the quality that it has, it's really good. Again, features 2 rings on this lens. With the amazing build quality, they managed to also put 2 rings on this lens. It also features one more customizable button next to the G symbol, and of course has that manual to autofocus slide. So it's very complete in terms of extra features. Again, the 2 rings are really easy to understand. The first one and the bigger one is for the aperture. You can close or open the aperture of this lens. The maximum aperture of this lens is f1.4, so when you are on low light conditions or even when you are filming video and you want that nice bokeh behind you, then you open up to the f1.4. But if it's getting too much light, then you can move this slide up and push it to the f16. That's the maximum close-up of this aperture. So f16, f1.4, that's the range you can work out with this lens. And also you have the second ring, which is actually one of my favorites because I never did it on my iPhone, and it is manual focus. Manual focus is so cool. Not for video, because for video you want to have autofocus. Autofocus is really, really cool. You just pick up my iPhone here, close it up to the camera, let's see if it picks it up. Yep, picked it up, then remove it, and yeah, that's how it can focus automatically without me being to move this ring on the focus ring. But when you are taking photos, then this is where it's at. Because you don't need to do the unreliable autofocus, which is actually really good on the Sony, but none of that. Don't need to trust the lens, no need to trust the camera. No, just trust your eyes and you can focus. And when you do that, it gives you this zoom animation so you can really see if you are focusing it correctly or not. This lens focus ring is really, really cool and I love it. The minimum distance for focusing is 20 centimeters or 0.66 feet. So that's all the characteristics that you can get from this lens. It's really fast, really, really good. The premium materials are amazing. The build quality is incredible. I don't know. If you want to buy a plastic cover for this lens, the diameter is about 55 millimeters. And to finalize, if you want to know how it looks, then this is how it looks, the lens. As you can see, it's, in my opinion, one of the best looking ones for the Sony A6700. As for the second lens, then I want to talk about a zoom lens. This is the Sony 18-105mm APS-C lens. This is still from the G lineup, as you can see. It's still a really good lens. This F4 lens, it's not the widest, or I don't know, when you're working in low light, it's not the best. This is a zoom lens, so it can go from 18 to 105 millimeters as a focal length, and of course the aperture is f4 throughout the whole zoom range. So again, this is not the lens for everyone, but if you want to buy a very, very practical lens for everything, then this lens is for you. Of course, this being f4 is not as good on low light, so you need more light to have as better photography as my other lens like the F1.4. Being an APS-C line lens, it's not an f4, it's an f6 equivalent to the full frame, and it's not an 18 to 105, but more of a 30 to 130 on the full frame. But still, I think it's really useful because it can cover the other focal lenses that my prime lens doesn't cover. For example, my 15mm that I was talking about before is completely stale. So it's a prime lens, it's 15mm. Cannot go further than that or backward than that. But because I wanted to cover more range, I wanted to take photography, I want to explore that world, I want to take portrait photos, I want to take photos from birds, planes, everything, I needed to buy a lens that can get further than my 15mm prime lens. So I decided to buy this one. And believe it or not, this lens cost me half of my prime lens. This lens cost me $350 on Amazon. It's a really good price for this lens. The quality is still amazing. It's still a G lens. It still has optical stabilization. So if you want to zoom in a lot, like 130 millimeters, you can do this because you can zoom to 105. So 105 is equivalent to around 130 millimeters. If you want to do that with this lens, then you need to have optical stabilization. It doesn't have any customizable buttons like my 15mm G lens, but again, still has this power zoom button, which is really useful. If you want to focus really fast, you can use this power zoom. Again, I think this lens has everything that you need for a zoom lens. For the price, it's really, really good. It's still a Sony lens, so all of the colors, it works completely fine. The software integrates incredibly well. Doesn't have any issues. For all the photos that I've taken, I think they look really, really great. You can take some of the photos. And being an f4, like you are thinking, oh, it doesn't create any type of background blur or the bokeh, but you are wrong. Because as further as you zoom in, for example, if you take a 70mm shot with an f4 on APS-C lineup, you still get amazing bokeh. Trust me. The only part is that when you are at 80mm or 20mm or 30mm on those lower focal lengths, because you are shooting a talking head, no, it won't create any type of bokeh. But if you are taking portrait shots, if you are taking photos of animals, zoom-ins on a field, it will create a beautiful bokeh. And this lens is really, really good for that. If you are wondering what are the differences between a talking head shot, between that lens, the 15mm, and now this lens, the zoom lens, as you can see, it's very zoom in on my face. I don't even fit on the frame, and it's much, much darker. But I can make some adjustments to make this lens look almost as similar as the other one. So let me just do it. So I think I've done my best to make them look similar, and this is how it looks. And of course, these are the color comparisons between those. I think this one is much saturated than the other one, but still, this is an 18mm, so about 26 equivalent, and it has a new studio light combination because I needed to increase the lighting because it's an F4, so it doesn't let in as much light as before, but still, I think it looks really good. The colors are a little bit more saturated, as you can notice, but I think I also like this look. Looking at the camera right now, I think all is fine. I don't know, let me know in the comments below, which lens do you prefer? This lens right here, the 15mm G, and now you can see the size of this tiny thing. It's really small when compared to the other lens that I showed you, but I think it's a really good combo and I think it's a really good value, this lens. It's amazing for vlogging, amazing for talking headshots. This one is also very versatile, as you can see. I just had to turn up my studio lighting and move it a little bit backwards so I had a little bit more space to breathe. But I think this lens is also the perfect combo. Buy a 15mm, this will cost you around $600, and then buy this one for $300, less than $1,000, you have a perfect combo for the Sony A6700. This is, I think, a 72mm diameter lens if you want to buy these types of plastics for it. The minimal focal lenses is 45 centimeters, so be sure to back from your subject around 1.48 feet. As for that, I don't know. This is the minimum. The maximum focal length for the 105 is 0.95 meters, so around almost 1 meter that you need to be distant if you want to activate the full 105mm focal length of this lens. It's a really good one. It has optical stabilization, like I told you. This lens also features 2 rings. Again, this ring is also very premium. They feel amazing. This lens is not about the same material as my prime lens. It's made of the older materials that Sony used to have. Still, I think it's aluminum, but it's still really, really premium. Still features the E-mount system. It's really good. And this has 2 rings. This one, again, is for the manual focus, really important. This one is not for the aperture. You cannot control the aperture of this lens. Again, this lens is a totally fixed f4 aperture, but you can zoom in and zoom out of your actual focal length. So it's really important if you want to take a shot very far away or you want to compose a different shot when you are taking photos. This is more of a photography focused lens, and so I think it implements and complements really well my 15mm prime lens. That's a video focused lens, this is a photography focused lens. And so that's why I think these 2 pair make a really good combo for the Sony A6700, and they are the best combo for your new camera. If you have bought the Sony A6700 recently because of one of my videos, then go check out these 2 lenses. If you cannot buy both, then I think if you take more photography, you should buy the zoom lens. It's cheaper, it can also cover the same distance as the 15mm G lens, and it can go way further because it has that zoom capability. While the 15mm lens is definitely focused for those that want to focus on video because it creates this amazing bokeh behind you. So you need to decide, but for me, I think if you save money, buy these 2 lenses for your arsenal because you save some money by buying an APS-C lineup. You will spend less than $1,000 buying these 2 lenses and around $1,200 buying the camera. So for less than $2,500, the price of the Sony A7 IV, you can get yourself an amazing combo. An amazing APS-C camera, body of course, an amazing prime lens and an amazing zoom lens. With this combo, you can cover any focal lenses and you can cover even any apertures because you have 1.4 upwards and you have a really good zoom lens for your portraits and your photography. So if you are looking for a really good combo for your Sony A6700, then the E15mm lens f1.4 and this 18-105 f4 are the lenses for you. They are both made from Sony, they are really good, and I think they will cover every single need that you have. So let me know in the comments below which one is your favorite. As for the autofocuses on this lens, the Sony E15mm G f1.4 is much faster at focusing. Although the body is the same, the lenses actually affect the performance of the autofocus. And as you can see on this test, the E18mm to 105 is much slower. Maybe the reason is the focal length or the range of the focus, I don't know. So, I was just finishing editing this video and I just noticed that I forgot to sign off to make an ending to the video. So, don't forget to drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel. I hope you enjoyed my video. This has been Tech Summer talking to you here. Bye bye.